Want to pack on muscle fast? Today we're diving into a controversial story, one filled with big promises, serious risks, and a lot of debate. It's a topic that splits opinions inside and outside the gym, but one that everybody's heard about at some point. So grab your pre-workout and stick with us, because what you're about to learn might completely change the way you look at shortcuts to muscle growth. Take a deep breath, crank up the volume, and get ready, because in just a few minutes you'll have access to info most people prefer to keep hidden. Let's talk about Dianabol, also known as methylandrosterone or metandienone. It's one of the most famous anabolic steroids in the bodybuilding world. Originally created for medical use, it gained popularity because it could be taken orally in pill form, which made it way more accessible than injections. It quickly became known for delivering noticeable strength and muscle mass gains in a pretty short time. But, as you'll see in this video, those quick results come with some very real dangers. Before we go any further, let's get one thing straight. This video is purely informational. We're not encouraging anyone to use steroids. Taking substances like Dianabol without medical supervision can lead to serious, sometimes irreversible health problems. What we want is to give you clear, honest information, so you know exactly what's at stake when the topic comes up at the gym or online. Behind the scenes of sports culture, Dianabol picked up a bunch of nicknames. People call it D-Bol, Diana, and in some underground markets, it even shows up as Anabol or Androidin. The fact that it goes by so many names already shows how widely it circulates, often far outside the safe, controlled environment of medicine. And that underground trade only makes misuse more likely. One of the big reasons it spreads so fast is how it's taken. Unlike many injectable steroids, Dianabol usually comes as tablets, which for a lot of people feels easier and less intimidating. In some countries, there are injectable versions, but pills are by far the most common. That convenience helped push Dianabol's popularity even more, especially among curious beginners or amateur athletes. From a pharmacological angle, Dianabol has an interesting profile for anyone chasing performance. It's got a strong anabolic effect and a moderate androgenic effect. In simple terms, that means it promotes muscle growth more than it triggers masculinizing side effects, though those can definitely still happen. Its half-life is short, around 3 to 6 hours, so results kick in quickly, but it also means users often take multiple doses a day to keep it working. The story of Dianabol starts back in the 1950s, right in the middle of the Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. In 1955, Dr. John Ziegler, working with the pharmaceutical company Ciba, developed the compound with a very clear goal: to boost American athletes so they could compete with the Soviets, who were already using testosterone. That's how one of the most iconic steroids in sports history was born. At first, Dianabol was approved for medical use. Doctors prescribed it for conditions like hypogonadism, osteoporosis, and even severe weight loss caused by illnesses like cachexia. For a while, it seemed promising, but the risks soon outweighed the benefits. Cases of liver damage, heart problems, and hormonal imbalances started piling up, and the medical community began sounding alarms. By the early 1980s, things shifted. Between 1983 and 1985, Dianabol was officially pulled from the U.S. market after multiple reviews concluded its medical benefits were questionable and its side effects too dangerous. Since then, its medical use has become rare worldwide, though in some places small-scale production still exists for very limited cases. In sports, the story is filled with scandals. Dianabol is banned by international anti-doping agencies and has been at the center of countless doping controversies. From the Olympics in the 1960s to more recent competitions, athletes caught using it have had their titles challenged, medals stripped, and reputations destroyed. Among users, Dianabol is almost always described as a shortcut to fast muscle growth. It's famous for packing on size and strength in just a few weeks, a temptation for both newbies and experienced lifters. That's why it's so common during bulking phases, when the goal is maximum size. Many report that within the first few days, they can already lift heavier weights and feel that intense pump, the swollen, full muscle sensation during and after training. Others talk about faster recovery, which lets them train harder and more often. These quick, visible changes are a big part of what built Dianabol's almost legendary reputation. Because it works so fast, Dianabol is often used as a kickstart steroid in cycles. While other compounds, especially injectables, can take weeks to really kick in, Dianabol hits almost immediately. This helps keep motivation high while waiting for the longer-term substances to build up. Another common argument from users is synergy. A lot of people claim that when Dianabol is stacked with other anabolic steroids, like testosterone, it can actually lower the total dose needed while boosting the overall response. Think of it as a teamwork effect between compounds. In theory, that could mean more gains and fewer side effects. But in reality, the risks stay pretty high. On the flip side, veterans often warn, running Dianabol alone, with no support or strategy, usually leads to gains that don't last. It's very common to lose much of the weight and size gained during the cycle once it ends, especially if there's no solid diet, consistent training, and of course, a proper post-cycle therapy, PCT, in place. To really understand why Dianabol hits so hard, so fast, we need to look at how it works in the body. One of its main mechanisms is boosting protein synthesis. In plain English, that means your muscles start building proteins faster, which directly fuels growth. The more protein your body can put to use, the better it can repair and expand muscle fibers after intense workouts. Another key factor is nitrogen retention. Nitrogen is essential for protein formation, and when your body has enough of it, you stay in an anabolic state. That's the sweet spot for muscle building. It also helps prevent catabolism, which is when the body breaks down muscle fibers for energy. In practice, your body holds on to what you build instead of burning it away, speeding up progress. Dianabol also changes the way your body uses carbs. It boosts both glycogenolysis and glycogen storage in the muscles. The result? More energy during workouts, a stronger pump, and that fuller, rounder look in your muscles. This instant visual effect is a big reason beginners are drawn to it. You see a difference in the mirror fast. There's also the effect on red blood cell production. More red blood cells mean more oxygen delivery to your muscles. That translates into less fatigue and better endurance in training. For people who push heavy weight or train for longer sessions, that feels like a huge advantage. But it's not all good news. While Dianabol delivers these effects, it also shuts down your body's natural testosterone production. When your system detects the extra synthetic hormone, it scales back its own output. This suppression of the HPG axis can cause problems with libido, fertility, and overall well-being once the cycle ends. And there's another major risk, aromatization. Part of Dianabol converts into estrogenic metabolites, which raises the chances of side effects like gynecomastia, male breast tissue growth, and water retention, which can spike blood pressure and cause bloating. So behind that impressive pump, there's a complex chemical trade-off happening. People who've used Dianabol often highlight some positives that stand out, mostly because they show up fast. The first and most obvious is the gain in size and weight. In just a few weeks, the scale goes up and your physique looks noticeably bigger. But it's important to understand, part of that gain is just water weight, not solid muscle tissue, so not all of it sticks around long-term. Another big plus is the strength boost. Many users say that within days they're lifting weights they never thought they could. That kind of sudden progress fuels intense workouts and, of course, impresses anyone watching. But that rapid jump in strength is also risky. The body might not be ready to handle that much stress so quickly. Faster recovery is another benefit people report. Less soreness, more energy to hit the gym again the next day, and a constant feeling of being ready to go. That sense of renewed stamina lets them train harder and more often, with fewer breaks. Beyond the physical effects, there are also mental and emotional changes. Some users describe sharper focus, boosted confidence, and even extra motivation to stick to their routine. That confidence shot can play a huge role for anyone chasing fast, visible results, even though it's coming from a substance, not naturally. But here's the bottom line. Every single one of those benefits comes with serious risks. The weight gain might be hiding health problems, that extra strength can overload your joints and tendons, and the mental boost can quickly flip into mood swings or aggression. What seems like an advantage at first can easily turn into a headache in the medium and long run. Now we're getting into the part most people like to ignore, but it's crucial to understand: the side effects of Dianabol. Some of the most common are estrogenic, because part of the compound converts into estrogen-like hormones. This leads to heavy water retention, spiking blood pressure, and causing noticeable bloating. It can also trigger dreaded gynecomastia, male breast growth, which is very hard to reverse without surgery. Then there are the androgenic effects, tied to masculinization. Users often report acne, oily skin, and for those genetically predisposed, accelerated hair loss. For women, the risks are even harsher. Dianabol can cause virilization, a deeper voice, abnormal hair growth, and permanent body changes. That's why this steroid is especially discouraged for women. Cardiovascular and metabolic risks are just as bad. Dianabol wrecks cholesterol levels by lowering HDL, the good cholesterol, and raising LDL and triglycerides, setting the stage for artery problems. It also raises red blood cell counts, making the blood thicker and putting extra strain on the heart. For anyone with a poor diet, sedentary lifestyle, or high body fat, this combo can be a ticking time bomb for heart attacks and strokes. The liver takes a heavy hit too. Dianabol is a 17-alpha alkylated steroid, which means it passes straight through the liver and can cause hepatotoxicity. That shows up as elevated liver enzymes and very real risk of damage. Mix it with alcohol or other oral steroids, and the danger skyrockets, drastically raising the chances of serious liver injury. Endocrine and sexual side effects also can't be ignored. Since the body cuts down its natural testosterone production when it senses the synthetic hormone, the result can be low libido, erectile dysfunction, testicular shrinkage, and even infertility. With long-term abuse, some of these problems can become permanent, changing the user's quality of life for good. On top of that, there are psychological side effects and general symptoms. Irritability, aggression, wild mood swings, headaches, heartburn, and constant nausea are all commonly reported. Dianabol doesn't just hit the body, it hits the mind, too, affecting personal relationships and mental health. When it comes to how people actually use it, the most common form is still oral tablets, usually 5, 10, or 15 milligrams pills, though capsules exist, and in some places you can even find injectable versions. That convenience of just swallowing a pill explains a lot of its popularity, especially among beginners who don't like needles. But ironically, that same convenience fuels reckless use. Reported doses vary a lot. Beginners often mention 15 to 30 milligrams per day. More experienced users talk about 30 to 50 milligrams daily, and in extreme cases, even higher. But here's the warning. The higher the dose, the greater the risk, especially to the liver and heart. Because of its short half-life, just 3 to 6 hours, many users split their daily intake into 2 or 3 doses to keep levels more stable. Others take it right before training, believing it boosts performance. Some even claim it absorbs better on an empty stomach, though that makes it harsher on digestion, while taking it with food softens the blow a bit. Typical use runs for 4 to 6 weeks max, since the liver can't handle longer cycles. After that, people usually take an equal or even longer break to let the body recover. Extending cycles beyond that point is extremely risky and increases the chance of permanent damage. Inside steroid cycles, Dianabol is often used as a kickstart, delivering fast gains while slower-acting injectables build up. Some also use it as a plateau breaker when progress stalls, or even as a bridge between cycles. That last one, though, is heavily frowned upon, since it gives the liver zero recovery time. One last point worth stressing: stacking Dianabol with other oral 17-alpha alkylated steroids, like Anavar, oxandrolone, Winstrol, stanozolol, or Anadrol, oxymethylone, is a recipe for disaster. Combining them multiplies liver toxicity dramatically. It's a risk many ignore in the chase for quick gains, but one that can come with a very steep price. When someone comes off Dianabol, the body enters a really fragile state. The natural hormonal axis, the system responsible for testosterone production, stays suppressed. That's where post-cycle therapy, or simply PCT, comes in. The goal is to jumpstart that system again and help the body get back to balance. Without it, most of the muscle gains from the cycle fade away, and the side effects can get even worse. The timing of PCT depends on the compound being used. With Dianabol, since it has a short half-life and no long esters attached, reports suggest starting therapy about 3 to 4 days after the last dose. That timing is crucial to avoid leaving the body too long without testosterone, which could cause low libido, fatigue, or even depression. The most common components of PCT are SERMs, like tamoxifen, Nolvadex, and clomid, which stimulate the production of LH and FSH, two key hormones that tell the testicles to start making testosterone again. In some cases, aromatase inhibitors, like anastrozole or exemestane, are also used to control excess estrogen, which can lead to gynecomastia and water retention. Another big point is liver support. Since Dianabol is harsh on the liver, many users turn to supplements like NAC, milk thistle, or TUDCA to help with recovery. They're not miracle fixes, but they can soften the blow from the stress the liver took during the cycle. PCT usually lasts 4 to 6 weeks, often with tapering doses to let the body gradually adjust. This window is where it's decided whether the muscle gains stick around, or if most of the progress disappears along with the hormonal crash. But here's the truth. There's no such thing as an effective PCT without clinical monitoring. Blood tests like total and free testosterone, LH, FSH, estradiol, lipid profile, hematocrit, and liver enzymes are essential to track how the body is bouncing back. That hard data is what shows whether your system is recovering naturally or still needs intervention. Above all, it's worth repeating. Using Dianabol without medical supervision is not recommended. Still, since a lot of people ignore that advice, health experts and user reports point to some harm reduction strategies that might at least reduce risks. This isn't encouragement, just information for those who, even knowing the dangers, still choose that path. The first recommendation is obvious: see a doctor. Regular checkups and blood work can catch issues with the liver, hormones, and cholesterol before they turn into serious problems. Monitoring is the single most effective line of defense against silent complications. Another common suggestion is to include cardio in your training. Beyond helping manage blood pressure, aerobic exercise strengthens cardiovascular health, the very system Dianabol stresses the most. Diet matters just as much. Cutting back on excess sodium, prioritizing quality fats, and keeping enough fiber in the diet all help protect the heart and blood vessels. Lifestyle choices matter, too. Avoiding alcohol and anti-inflammatories during the cycle is key, since both put even more strain on the liver, already under pressure from a 17-alpha alkylated oral steroid like Dianabol. Another big mistake is stacking it with other oral steroids, which multiplies liver toxicity exponentially. There's also talk about using aromatase inhibitors, AIs, to control estrogen. But here's the double warning. These drugs should only be considered if blood tests or clear symptoms show a problem. Crushing estradiol too low can cause issues just as bad as having too much, like joint pain and loss of libido. Self-medicating here can be even more destructive than the steroid itself. In the end, two golden rules stand out. Always plan PCT after a cycle, and never change cycles back-to-back without breaks. The body needs recovery time, and skipping that step raises the risk of permanent damage. And one last reminder, women should never use Dianabol under any circumstance. The risk of virilization, deeper voice, excess hair growth, and irreversible body changes is extremely high. To wrap up our guide, let's tackle some of the quick questions that always come up when people talk about Dianabol. These are super common doubts, but they help paint a clearer picture of how this steroid really works and the risks that come with it. The first one, does Dianabol help you lose fat? The answer is no. In fact, the opposite usually happens. Users often deal with water retention and noticeable size increase. So if the goal is definition or fat loss, this is definitely not the compound to look at. Next question, does it cause hair loss? Yes, it can, especially for people who are genetically prone to baldness. Even though its androgenic activity is lower than testosterone, the risk is still there. What's the best time to take it? There's no universal rule. Some people split the dose throughout the day to keep blood levels steady. Others prefer to take it all before training, aiming for a boost in strength and pump during the workout. Each strategy has its pros and cons. One of the most important ones, can you drink alcohol during a cycle? The answer is an absolute no. Alcohol puts even more stress on the liver, which is already working overtime processing the steroid. On top of that, alcohol can mess with your results. So here we are, at the end of our breakdown on Dianabol. As we've seen, it's a steroid that can deliver quick gains in size and strength, but at a very high cost. The liver, the heart, blood vessels, hormone balance, blood pressure, and even mental well-being can all take a hit. And let's not forget the legal and ethical side. Dianabol is banned in professional sports and is a controlled substance in many countries. The truth is, the best results still come from the safe route: a solid training plan, consistent nutrition, quality rest, and when needed, legal supplements. These are the pillars that build lasting gains without putting your future at risk. For anyone who, despite all this, still considers using it, the bare minimum should be doing it responsibly, with medical supervision, regular blood tests, and a proper post-cycle therapy. But make no mistake, none of this erases the risks. It only lowers them a little. Health can't be romanticized or pushed aside. So here's our final reflection. Knowledge and caution are worth more than any shortcut. Muscle can fade, but your health and your life are one of a kind. Always choose the safer, smarter path. And before you go, a quick invite. If this video gave you value, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can also become a channel member to support our work. And let me know in the comments, what surprised you the most about Dianabol? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Oh, and don't forget, on the end screen you'll see another video that ties into this topic and might interest you a lot. Click there and keep going with us on this journey of knowledge. See you next time.